Hello and welcome to Culture Vibes, the Federal's special program in which we talk to writers and artists about their work. You have met many writers and artists on this show. Today you are going to meet award-winning investigative journalist Mazhar Farooqui, senior editor with Khaleej Times, who has also worked with Gulf News, Hindustan Times. Earlier, before he moved to Dubai, he has worked with Times of India, Hindustan Times, Pioneer. Has got so many awards. Maz bhai, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time out. Mazhar bhai has written this beautiful book. It's called the Maz Files: Scoops, Scams, and Showdowns. This has been published by Westland, and it chronicles the several stories that he has done as an investigative journalist in Dubai. And at the outset, Maz bhai, let me begin with this question about investigative journalism in Dubai. For a lot of people, it would seem that perhaps it wouldn't be possible to do investigative journalism of the kind that we are familiar with in a monarchy. Would you talk a little bit about your own experience and say that this is something, and you are UAE's only investigative journalist. So from that vantage point, would you like to talk about what it has entailed to be somebody reporting on so many scams and reporting telling so many stories of people? Give us a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's difficult what I do. When I came to Dubai in 2005 from Times of India, so investigative journalism was completely unheard of. Right. So when I would say something like this, like I want to do a story, the editor would look at me and say, like, how can you do it? This is Dubai, it's not like in India. But somehow I kind of raised the bar and I persisted, and it kind of paid off. Right. But again, it's not easy. I've had like 35 court cases. I don't know how many legal notices. I've lost count. And I've spent night in jail. But it's okay. I mean, I've managed to kind of stay afloat and do what I want to do. It is difficult, of course, but it is not impossible.
Okay. So tell us, I mean, you of course write about some of your stories that you have reported and the kind of showdowns that you have had with people. And I wanted to understand from you, what is it, if you had to pick one story that has been the most challenging in terms of, how you sort of zeroed in on the sources and how challenging it was to sort of bring it to light, because in most of the cases you actually don't get to report it even if you have the lead. So the most challenging story that you have reported in your storied career?
Oh, there's like so many of them. I think the one that comes to mind, which is very recent, just happened like a few months ago,
right,
in which we uncovered or dismantled one of the world's biggest cybercrime syndicate. So what was happening is that it's quite sad that unable to find jobs in India, a large number of Indian youths moved to other countries like like Cambodia and Myanmar, where they're trafficked to become cyber slaves, and they're carrying out cyber crimes in their country, sitting elsewhere. So a huge number of them moved to the UAE as well, and some of them were doing it willingly and some of them were doing it unwillingly.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they were cheating their own people in India and making huge sums of money. The amount was staggering, into millions of dirhams every single day. So when I got the lead of this story, I couldn't quite believe it, that something like this would be happening in the UAE, which is the safest country in the world. I mean, Dubai is absolutely amazing. Even other cities like Abu Dhabi and Sharjah rank very highly in terms of safety. But we have bad elements everywhere. So some of these elements managed to sneak into Dubai, and they were setting up this massive operation. So at first, when we got the first lead, I spoke to one of the person who was inside as a cyber slave, and she told me. So I said, is it for real? Is it happening in the UAE? And then we reached out to authorities, and then it took me about 3.5 months. Now what was happening is that this particular woman who was inside as a cyber slave, so they were given targets. You conduct 12 scams, then you get out for half an hour, and you get an out pass to get out. So every night I used to hang around her building. It was like heavily guarded by guards, and then in the hope that, okay, if she manages to cheat 12 people, then she can get out and I can meet her. So it was, and my wife used to accompany me. And then one day we managed to get her out, and what she told me was shocking. That they were thousands of slaves working across the country and elsewhere also in other countries. So we worked with authorities, and then eventually in June towards the end, a massive raid was carried out, and all these people were arrested. So it was tricky because first we have to make authorities understand of the situation, and then even our own office. So, but I'm glad that it did work out well.
You begin with the book with the episode where you had this tiff with a verbal kind of a spat with this public prosecutor, and you say that the seed of the book was actually born there. I mean, the idea sprang from there, from that encounter with the public prosecutor. And what was the case? Because you were behind bar for a night.
Yeah. I mean, I've had so many legal notices in court cases, but in this particular case, it was like a stupid case. I in fact feel embarrassed talking about it. So there was a talent hunt happening in Dubai, and there was a fight between the talent hunt organizers and one of the participants, and I was there as a bystander. So I reported about it, and then these guys had a out-of-court settlement, and they wanted to frame me, and somehow they put my name also in the thing, and for which I got arrested because in the system it says I was wanted. It didn't say whether I was wanted for rape or murder or theft. So I ended up in jail for a night. I was very upset. And then I was told that I should apologize for this case. I said, no, nothing. I'll go ahead and do whatever. And Dubai, the courts are very fair. And eventually we did win the case. So I thought, okay, let me write about the whole thing. So that's how the book came about.
Right. And also when you have, for instance, a lead, I mean, there can be so many ways that a story can be killed. I mean, there can be sources in the government or a call from some high and mighty, and the story is nipped in the bud. How many instances of such instances would you have that made you maybe perhaps angry about the whole thing?
Well, it is not just in the UAE but around the world. Unfortunately, advertising revenues have dropped down. So commercial interests are involved. So if you do a story which might affect the revenue, then the supers are reluctant. And I will say the same thing in Times of India or Hindustan Times, Pioneer also. That okay, you can't write about him because these are big advertisers. So these things happen, and this is what we kind of accepted it broadly. But of course, if there's a larger public interest involved, then we said, okay, let's do it. So I remember we did in 2017 when a company based out of Hyderabad was running what could perhaps be the world's biggest recruitment scandal. So they had 30 million subscribers, which is more than the population of many countries, and they were carrying out massive job scams around the world. Now, cheating someone in the name of giving them jobs is very cruel. I mean, that is unacceptable. So, although we thought, okay, these companies are advertising with newspapers and they have a major, then we said, okay, let's do it, and we busted them big time. But it was challenging, of course.
But then sometimes when you bust such scams and when you target these people, there is always this risk of backlash. How do you deal with that? And over the years, how have you dealt with that?
In the beginning, when I went to the court for the first time, when I filed legal notice that landed, I was like a bit rattled. But now it's like another day at work. So, we just take it at our pace. But what we also learn is that, I went to a conference in Johannesburg many years back, and I met a journalist. So he told me something very interesting. He said, hold the aces. I said, what does that mean? He said, when you do a story, don't reveal everything. Keep something back as a leverage. At that time, it didn't make sense. But now when I do a story and someone says, we're going to come after you, I said, okay, Baba, Ruko, we have this as well for you. So I hold something back as you call hold the aces. And that kind of, I use it, I don't know, I wouldn't call it blackmail, but I would say leverage. And it helps. Because, when a case goes to court, you have to hire lawyers, it's very expensive. You suppose don't have the budget that they used to have back in the day. And also a lot of time wasted. You are there to work, I remember in 2017 or 18, I was spending most of my time either in the court or in the police station. When do you get to work? So
that tends to distract you also.
Absolutely. Also, if you are in the UAE, you have to sit with the lawyers and you have to translate so many things, which is very difficult, and the meanings get lost in translation. So,
true. Then, but you are somebody who transitioned from the feature writing to investigative journalism. What was it about investigative journalism? And in a way, you also kind of blazed a trail in that sense, because it was not something that the UAE media was familiar with, and it's completely new to the media.
Yeah,
so
it is very interesting. When I came to the UAE, I was a lifestyle editor. I was doing showbiz. I was going to all the parties. I was doing Bollywood fashion shows, and I enjoyed it. Like Dubai is from someone who came from Lucknow, and to be suddenly thrust as a leisure editor in Dubai with all the showbiz, I quite loved it. But then I realized, is it something I want to do? But should I be writing about food reviews and entertainment joints and all of that? I thought, okay, let me do something different. And I had some investigative stories done here in India. So I switched gear and said, okay, let me do something.
Right.
And it was difficult to convince the editor, but when the first story came out and we had this huge impact, then okay, let's do another. So I kept on pushing and I'm grateful to my editors in Gulf News and Khaleej Times, who allowed me to do what I want to do.
Right.
They had immense faith in me, and regardless of the consequences, they said, okay, let's do it. And it was an uncharted territory. No one was doing it. I was the first one to do it.
Right.
So, and the feedback.
What was your first story as an investigative journalist?
I couldn't quite remember, but for some strange reason, I have a knack of getting into trouble.
Okay.
Anything happens, I'm always there. So I wouldn't call it investigative journalist, but this was. We came to Dubai in 2005, June.
Right.
And I remember this was sometime in November.
Okay.
So we were just rolling around the mall just like tourists, and I just got a new business card. And I was at a mall called Ibn Battuta with my family and kids. And suddenly I see a commotion. I see a woman running and another woman running after her. It was a very strange sight. And then these two women fell over each other, started fighting. So I went and said, "Kya ho raha hai?" Separated them physically. So the woman was chasing, said that this woman, who was in an abaya, like a burqa, is a man. So what do you mean is a man? So no, the woman is a man, and I saw her applying makeup in the washroom, and which was like very strange. I said, like, a man going around in a mall in a abaya in an Islamic country. So I go up to this person and said, look, this woman is claiming that you are a man, and is it true? And he replied in a man's voice. He said, yes, I can go wherever I want to. And he was wearing gloves and he had a full niqab. So I said, dude, this is Dubai. Baba, you cannot be going to a women's loo, you'll be in trouble. He said, yeah, I can go wherever I want to. He was very arrogant. So in the meantime, they started fighting again, and they were like, I was physically separating them, and there was no one around. This was like in a mall called Ibn Battuta, and soon the security came, and then they took away this guy and put him in a bookstore. So the bookstore called Magrudi's. And I was very intrigued. So I thought maybe it's some rich bloke scared or someone who's just trying to act funny. And soon the police was going to come and take him away. So I called my office and said, there's something funny happening here. There's a man who's been caught in a rabaya. He was in the washroom. I said, okay, it looks very interesting, but we can leave a small space and you can just see what it is. Around 4 o'clock, the mall security head comes and they, so I go to him and said, this is Mazhar Farooqui, I'm from Gulf News. We don't want the press. Please go away. I'm very intrigued. I said, Baba, the press happens to be here and you don't know what's happening. So I go up to this man and give them my business card. I said, and this man who was in the buyer says, I'm a wrong man caught in the wrong place. I'll call you, but just leave me alone. And he didn't call me. I tried to call him back, but by this time he was sitting in a bookstore and he had his feet on the table and he has these two expensive phones and those phones were buzzing. And I'm standing outside and the security had laid a cordon and they couldn't let anyone go inside. It's about 6 o'clock in the evening. So I called my office again and said, look, this guy seems to be something very big. And I was expecting him to be taken to the police station, but he's sitting with his feet on the table. And So it's okay, keep a watch. Another hour passed, and my wife is saying, like, why we have come here for shopping and you're just stuck here, and the kids are also getting restless. Let me find out what this was. So I go to the security guards and said, like, who is this guy? Like, why is he there? And the security guards from our country, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, he says, Bhai Saab, we don't know, he's some Jackie Chan. I said, Jackie Chan? What Jackie Chan? He said, Michael Jackie Chan. I said, Michael Jackson. Bole, yahi Michael Jackson. I said, Michael Jackson. He said, yeah. Like, oh my God, this is Michael Jackson. He was like fighting, I was like separating them. He called me. So I go around and I duck and I said, hello Michael. He takes out his wheel and says, does that make you happy? Now get out from here. I said, my God, Michael Jackson is sitting here. So I called him and said, like, stop press. I've got Michael Jackson here. And while I'm doing all of this, he points to the cops at me. He would have said, this guy was like after my life. And all the cops came swarming at me and said, like, it took me away. And now I'm getting calls from office because I gave them a scoop.
Right.
And my phone is with the police. So it took me about like 2 hours for me to by the time it's like almost midnight, I look at the phone, there are like 70, 80 missed calls. Family is worried. So we go to the office and we did break that story. And of course, the next day all hell broke loose and everybody knew that there's some. So there was some situation like this that kind of.
But you have had such encounters with many other celebrities, including you got friends with M.F. Hussain, and you did that interview with Benazir Bhutto, and that was. Would you give us a sense of when you met these people, and especially I'm talking about Benazir Bhutto and M.F. Hussain here. Talking of Bhutto, of course, that was something what she actually talked about was a lot had to do with a lot of Pervez Musharraf, what he's up to, and could you talk a little bit about both?
Yeah, so Benazir Bhutto, when I met her, the first condition was that the interview should not appear with the Dubai Dateline. It should appear as a London Dateline. By that, she can't be making political statements sitting in Dubai. I said, okay, fair enough, we'll put it in London Dateline. So she was a very generous host, and I remember when I was there, Bilawal was there and he had big hair, and he was talking about some Salman Khan show. And Benazir said to him, "Iske baal dekho kitne bade bade kar rakhe usne, why does he get a haircut?" So we had a kind of a bond, and she used to call me and send chocolates and stuff. But she came across a very strong woman, and she was wanting to go back to Pakistan. And she said a lot of things in the interview, which I have in my dictaphone. I'm going to try to fix it because it has enough potential to create another turmoil. So
M.F. Hussain was, of course, he was hounded out of India. And right-wing forces were after him. What sense did you get about his, this longing for home?
He had immense pain. He breathed India. I mean, he wanted to go back, and he said all the time that my best paintings are on Ramayana. Like I've made a paintings on. So
the controversy was about Mother India.
I mean.
Donated to the
Mumbai so police. He kept on saying this that that as an artist now people used to say, why don't you make paintings on Islam? He said because there is no concept of painting Islam. But he was, I mean, it feels sad that he had to die in a foreign country, and he used to say that if anyone calls him and he go back the same day, take the flight and go back. And he had a lot of friends and he was a celebrity painter, but I felt his pain, and he had no one to share it other than me. So he used to call me and used to go out for tea and sit for hours and discuss things. And
talking about some of the most interesting chapters, you have a part. You have this whole section called Evil Geniuses, in which you talk about some of the scams, and I would like you to talk a little bit about some of them. I mean, beginning with this, you spoken briefly about the job scandal and the scams, and how people are sort of hoodwinked into believing that they are actually getting a job and offer for a job, but they are actually a big scam. So, give us a sense of what it took for you to sort of unravel that.
Yeah, so for good or for bad, my work has led to the arrest of about 250 individuals. So they have been either deported or facing legal action or
And they've all issued several threats to you.
Yeah, so as I said, if someone were to bump me off, I wouldn't know who it was. So many people, I would have known.
Ruffle so many feathers.
Yeah. But with this story, Wisdom Jobs, I had a great fun doing it.
Yeah.
Although we are uncovering a big scam. So what was happening is that they had like reinvented the whole thing, and they have. So what they used to do is that they used to raise posts which didn't exist, and then if someone would apply to this post, they would say, okay, your CV has been selected, and you have to pay so much money, and then they had someone to call them for the interview. And they have such a great mechanism is that suppose if you want to apply for a job in ABC Bank in Dubai, if you would get a call from the HR manager of ABC Bank, which a real HR manager, so if you used to call back, they said, yeah, we have this guy. And they had people who used to impersonate, actually talk in different accents. So they had taken it to that level. So I applied for a job of a restaurant chef or something, and in my CV I wrote, I make unpalatable food. My food has led to food poisoning. My degrees are fake. Everything, and I knew that they will not look at my degree, look at my CV, because all they are interested in is money. So I applied I played along, and sure enough, I got calls from them saying, "Oh, your CV is so good. There's 7 restaurants in Dubai wanting to hire me." Yeah. And then that's how we uncovered the whole racket, and it was very heartening because I think 2 days after we published the story, Hyderabad police launched a crackdown and like arrested all of them. And I don't know what's happening with the case now.
Right.
But the police held a press conference and said, like, this is great work. And
this cyber slave story is also had, when it comes to India, it's a great deal of interest.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be. I mean, actually, they should be getting a medal for it.
Right.
Because I'll tell you why. Thousands of people engaged in carrying out cyber crimes in my country from abroad. I stopped that. Okay, it's still happening. But those individuals who are doing it, they have been taken to task.
Yeah. Some of them have walked free, scot-free totally.
Yeah.
This story of Mazhar Patel and Bhagwabhai Patel, you write that, of course, I mean, they were for the simple fact that they had a connection with the Ambanis in India. They were able to flout those norms and have that. Would you talk about that case as well?
Yeah, this is one story which everyone should talk about.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why Indian media, they have forgotten about this story. Now this is about a father and son duo called Madhav Patel and Bhagwabhai Patel. So they carried out what I believe, and I mean, you can just Google their name, you can look it up. The biggest scam in the world. So this is about £1 billion in the 80s, which is a lot of money. Even Trump didn't have that money in those days. So about 12 banks I don't remember the exact numbers, but there were scores of banks across the world that were affected, including many in the UAE, many in India. And then they disappeared. They were Abu Salim was after them as well, and then they were arrested in India, and no one knows where they are now. Okay. I believe that they are out. They are wanted in many countries, including Europe, Far East, UAE, India as well. They have many cases, but they're out. Now my question is, where is the money? £1 billion is a lot of money, and coincidentally, Madhav Patel is married to. I'm not saying anything, but this is a fact.
Brother.
Yeah, a brother's daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
Deepak Raheja is another very interesting character about whom you write. This chapter called "The Lords of Trading Scams," and his scam was goods against duds.
Yeah.
And you write that he was somebody who spawned a lot of fraudsters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And could you talk a little bit?
Yeah, as I said, if I were to get a chance to interview anyone, it will be this guy. Because I would say, if I meet him, I'll just maybe hold his feet and say, because what happens with these scamsters is the audacity and the genius. They're so good at what they do that you actually marvel at them. So this guy, he invented a fraud which has now many people following the same thing. it's very simple and very clever. Not that I'm giving any ideas to anyone. So how it works is that they open a company, fancy company, fancy office in Dubai. Deepak Raheja will not put himself in the front, but he will have someone fronting the company. And then they go out and buy goods. Whatever they can buy, they'll buy in cash to gain confidence. Once they've gained confidence, they'll place bulk orders and against positive checks. So they'll buy like 10,000 computers or iPhones or food material or anything they will buy. They give positive checks, and before the checks is in cash, they move the entire goods to another place and then sell it off for cash. So this is very rampant. We have documented about hundreds of scams, and Mr. Raheja is. I don't feel afraid of naming him, and he can go ahead and sue me. I don't care now.
And there was a crypto fraudster called Amit Bhardwaj,
Yeah.
for whom also you very interesting chapter.
Yeah.
And also in a way that it's all unraveling now how crypto was a big this thing. Would you give us a sense of what this scam was all about?
Yeah. So one of the world's most wanted women is a woman called Ragna Natova. She carried out a scam called OneCoin, which was about $4.5 billion. Amit Bhardwaj is approximately the same amount. He carried out a scam in the name of a cryptocurrency which didn't exist. And then he mysteriously died. No one knows where the money is. The matter is still in court. But the number of victims are into thousands.
Right.
So it is quite sad because the new age scams about crypto, NFTs, people don't know anything about it, but they go invest money. So people should actually have some kind of knowledge before investing in these kind of dubious companies.
Right.
Yeah.
This crypto craze, when it started, actually a lot of people who did not have any idea of what cryptocurrency was, they started investing, and then a lot of them actually got to know the darker side of it later.
It is still the same.
But yeah, it's still
the same.
Yeah. Okay, one question about when you cover such stories and when you have from the perspective of an investigative journalist, how does it how do you approach it? Like when it comes to maybe pursuing a story or following it up, what shape a particular story takes, and depending on so many circumstances, of course, sometimes you have the lead and then you follow it, and then there are of course so many things that the story goes through, and then finally it sees the light of the day. So
I think the perseverance is the most important tip that I have, because we just it looks very fancy or very glamorous investigative journalism. It will say like James Bond. It is not. It's very, very hard.
There's a lot of risk,
and also a lot of meticulous approach to a story. Like you cannot just Google and research. You have to go out on the streets and knock at the doors. Plus, what happens when you're doing a story, you get so much information. The data is overwhelming. Now to filter through all of this and turn into a coherent story for your readers, it is very important, because some of these scams are about crypto and blockchain and metaverse and NFT. People don't understand this. So to be able to demystify it to our readers and tell them in a coherent manner, and to retain just what is required for our readers is important. Because if I bombard them with technical jargon, they'll say what the hell is this? So to simplify a scam and to explain, but of course, what goes behind it is a lot of hard work. You have to keep your whistleblowers in good humors.
Right.
You have to retain the trust of these individuals. You have to have contacts across all departments. So what we do is that we build relationship, and these relationships are built over years. Suppose I get a pass of a concert, I'll give it to someone, and tomorrow when I call him, so he'll be happy to share information. And of course, they need to have that kind of trust that their name will be not revealed.
Right.
So that comes over lots of years. It doesn't happen overnight.
And of course, you're now in a position where, of course, a lot of people in UAE are familiar with your body of work. So has it, if you look back and say that when you started out, say 20 years ago in Dubai, have things become easier now that perhaps you are perhaps a familiar name, a familiar face?
It is, but it's also very overwhelming, because when I go to office, I have people waiting for me outside.
Right.
And and then my phone number has become kind of viral. So, and anybody who's scammed, they think this is the most important thing in their life, which it is.
Yeah.
But if I handle like 10, 12 calls every day, it completely drains me. So so it has come to this that for Eid, I had some guests at my house, and my daughter's saying, Abba, are these guests or are these victims? Because it has come to this. If you look up my phone, there are hundreds of victims.
Right.
And people calling it odd hours, and I do understand that they have, but we also have family and stuff. So
right. No, you're right that it's when the perception of a investigative journalist is that you basically bust scam and you deal with all these kinds of gangsters, but your drive has been to tell stories of people, and at the end of the day it has been all about people. What is your sort of drive? What is it that that keeps you ticking as a
only one thing.
investigative journalist? Yeah.
So if there is a scam involving two individuals, I say, Baba, not interested.
Right.
What is the larger public interest? If it involves larger public interest, then we do it. If it is between two individuals or someone has cheated someone, that doesn't affect us.
Right.
But if it involves our readers, if it's something that we need to tell everyone, then we do it. And we go and dig deep into it and uncover it.
Right. How do you see, this, and I'm talking about investigative journalist only, changing its contours in the last 2 decades? For instance, now, of course, there is proliferation of media. You have digital media on the one hand, you have social media on the other hand. That earlier, what could have been possibly a scoop would be, out in a second on Twitter and elsewhere. In this age, in today's digital age, what do you think? What does it take to be like an investigative journalist of your stature and continue doing your work with?
I don't have any stature, but I think it has a bright future because see, news you'll get. It's impossible to hide news.
Right.
Everyone is a journalist now. A fire happens, God forbid, in your neighborhood, you will get it later, but someone's going to tweet it. So news is instant now. So where do you have an edge over everybody else is to do a deep dive into stories and uncover something, and not necessarily about crime or scam busting, but even any other issue. Investigative journalism doesn't have to be about crime. It has to be about, I don't know, mining or environment issues, So all these things that you need to, and now that you have access to data and information, it can be done.
And how do you look at the broader picture of media in the UAE in general and Gulf in particular, the Gulf world in particular? I mean, there is presence of many other publications also, and there was a time when in UAE, for instance, these two publications held sway in a way, that Khaleej Times and Gulf News. They were the two prominent. They continue to be in a way.
Right.
But when you have this whole government bodies taking and regulating things, how does those dynamics change?
So to be fair, as I said, there are a lot of perception about the UAE, especially by the Western media. They portray some kind of, but it is not. I mean, we have more freedom in the UAE than I probably have elsewhere. And I can tell you, look at what is happening in India today. Do you think anyone can write against certain issues? We cannot. Let's be practical. I mean, the term Godi media, where it come from? So in the UAE, no matter what people say, the stories do get published. It's difficult, it's challenging, but and the country has zero tolerance about crime. UAE is not a place for bad people. If it is the safest place in the whole world, there's no burglars, there's no mugging on the streets. But yeah, of course there are criminals because it attracts a lot of people.
Right. But when these stories reported, for instance, you report a scam, then does the government get involved and take some action against them?
Yeah, of course it does. Okay. I mean, all these individuals that we have reported about,
they've been all convicted.
Yeah, many times. See, our circle of influence is very limited. We do a story. Sometimes something happens. Sometimes something doesn't happen. So we can only do so much. We cannot ask the government to take an action. If it happens, we said thank you so much. Yeah. Our job ends at reporting the story coherently to our readers. That is what we do.
Right. few things about UAE, and that which I found particularly fascinating, that it is one of the world's largest media consumers. And there are two other things that, that it ranks first among countries in the world in terms of social media use. It's according to some research recently. And it's also the most connected country in the world, not just on social media, but it's according to a recent survey, it ranks highly in practically all areas, including internet usage, social media platforms, fixed broadband subscriptions, mobile cellular subscriptions, and all that. So in such a scenario, do you think that a journalist's job becomes easy, or there continues to be some kind of fight somewhere that you
see, journalism as an industry around the world, it's like it is not in good shape.
Right.
Like newspapers are struggling around the world. I mean, look at New York Times; they had to downsize. So the industry is struggling. I will not sugarcoat it.
Especially print.
Yeah, print. Yeah. So newspapers have branched out to digital platforms,
Right.
and they are when I joined the UAE as a journalist. So newspapers would be like 400 pages every day. They used to come at thump. They used to.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we used to turn 50 pages of the magazine to reach the content panel. Now that space is gone.
Right.
Our section of business was 16 pages. The whole newspaper is 16 pages. So those days are gone.
Right.
Those days are gone.
So you were talking about India, and wherever you have regimes where there is some kind of autocratic kind of inclined towards autocracy, or it's not very tolerant in terms of what is being written about in the media. They always tend to take control of the narratives in a way, and perhaps that also happens in the monarchy. As a journalist, when you see truth being compromised, that when truth has to triumph, but in most of the cases it's really not the case, that truth becomes casualty of power in most of the cases. Does that? How do you respond to those episodes as a journalist?
No, it is sad. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it. It hurts.
Right.
It hurts, and but things are changing a lot from what UAE or Saudi Arabia was until a few years ago. It has changed dramatically. I was in Saudi Arabia a few days back, and I was like stunned to see women driving, and I saw baristas, women. So things are changing, but
And it's also getting reflected in the media sphere.
I wouldn't say in the way I expect them to be, but things are changing.
Okay.
Because what is happening is that because of social media, okay, you cannot write about certain things, but how do you control social media? I mean,
Right.
like you have Twitter, you have Instagram, you have. So it's impossible to stop a story from coming out in public domain.
Right.
So if it's not in the print media, or then it will probably find its way on social media.
Two more questions, and then we'll wind up.
Yeah.
One about your years in India. Those were also the fascinating years, because the kind of stories you tend to do. Some of them were, of course, killed when you were in Hindustan Times and Times of India. Some of them you managed to get published by hook or crook. And there is an interesting chapter about these Aghoris of Allahabad. And you also worked with this adult magazine, which was pretty popular.
Yeah.
So these episodes would you like to talk about? You seem to have a lot of fun during those days.
I mean, we were a small team in Allahabad, and although I worked across 9 newspapers and big ones, Times of India, Hindustan Times, Pioneer, Gulf News, Khaleej Times, and but I would say that small team that we had were a bunch of creatives who were doing absolutely wonderful work, and I learned so much from them. And we had great fun doing those stories. Aghori was good. Aghoris are cannibals, if you can call them. So they feast on dead bodies, cult. So we managed to spend some 5 days with them. Thankfully, they didn't eat me alive, because probably I didn't taste that good to them.
Yeah.
But
you went at night to meet them when they're...
yeah. I mean, I spent like 5 days with them, and saw them eat dead bodies and perform a kind of rituals. And I used to wear a leather jacket those days.
Okay.
And the jacket, it kind of soaked in the stench of the dead bodies and the meat and the ganja or bhang, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat meat for like so many days. So some of those sights that you see kind of stays in your head. So Aghodis are one of them. Like I remember that one particular night it was raining and it was dark, and these Aghodis jumping into a funeral pyre and taking out a dead body and then tearing into it with the like just like a Ramsey Weather movie. That kind of stays in your head.
Yeah.
So
it's a memoir, of course. The Maz Files, Scoops, Scams, and Showdowns is a memoir. But you are already working on 2 of your other books. And
yeah.
One of them, Myra, is a thriller. Another, Hell Hath No Fury, is a work of fiction. And would you like to talk about both?
Yeah. So Myra is a tentative title. I'm writing this book with a woman called Dr. Amna Mahmood. She's based in Pakistan. I've not met her, I've not seen her. So it's like a collaborative work. So the book is about a journalist called Maz, no connection with me, disclaimer.
Yeah.
And a woman called Myra, she's from Pakistan, and how their world collide and all of that. So it's set in Dubai. It's largely done. It's 70,000 words. It's like Ek Tha Tiger, Pathan, and Jawan, but the script, I can tell you, is far more engaging. It's got cricket, so it's going to be.
And the other book, Hell Hath No Fury?
Hell Hath No Fury is a work in progress. I was hoping to finish it, but so if I was a doctor and I could come home and write, it would have been easy. But if you're writing at work and then coming back and writing, it's very difficult. Then I realized that you'll never get a time that you will be sitting with a cup of coffee and with the fascinating view. That's never going to happen. So writing is not so much of creativity but discipline. This thing I realized much last year, in fact.
Absolutely.
So now I commit myself 1,000 words minimum. So Myra book is complete. I need to write the climax, which probably I'll do in a few days. And I'll work on the other book, which is Hell Hath No Fury. That will probably take another year or so, best case scenario. So that book is set in hell. I'm in hell along with a bunch of other. So I wouldn't want to reveal much. But,
yeah. Reminds me of this 7 Moons or Mari Al Mahida with the Sri Lankan writer called.
I've not read it.
I'll take a look. Okay. Okay. On that note, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.